Welcome to Healthy Conversations, sharing the knowledge, experience, stories, and the wisdom of herbalists and other natural healers, with your host, Stephen Horn. Today's guest, KP Kaltza. Hi, welcome to Healthy Conversations. I have again with me KP Kaltza, a friend and colleague, and also a former president of the American Herbalist Guild and also a professional member of the Guild. And today we were going to talk about dosing. How much do you take when you're taking an herbal medicine or natural product? And so, KP, you want to start off and tell us some of your thoughts on this particular topic?
Yeah, almost every dose you see out there in the public sector is way too low. So if we look at some older systems of herbal medicine, we often find that that they're using doses that may be 20 times higher than the typical suggested dose in modern day commercial products or that you will see online. It seems like companies are more afraid of you having side effects than they are afraid of you not getting results. So the question is to take enough to get the result you want. It's the most consistent problem that I see in herbal medicine today. When we first began to look at herbal medicine, when we were resurrecting the whole thing over the last 50 years, we took a look at European herbal dosing. They use mainly tinctures in the European system, and that would include Australia and other similar places, former British colonies. And they found that they were using doses that were 7 to 15 times higher than the doses that were being suggested. I'm not sure where these minute doses actually came from. They don't come from any historical use of anything, and all I can suggest is just that it was commercial. People would rather buy a small amount of something and hope that it worked. And then there's a sort of a widespread myth that certain forms of medicine are more potent than others, and people think that just a few drops may do what they want to do. The bottom line with dosing is that you want to get some kind of a sense of what dose is going to be appropriate, and for that you want to look at very well-established clinicians, their books, their websites, things like that, because we've all pretty much come to the same conclusions about what works. The problem is books for the layperson and websites that are by people that don't have clinical experience. So you get some kind of a sense of what dose is likely to work. You start out with a small amount and you increase the dose incrementally every day or two until one of two things happens. Either you get the results that you want and then you sustain that dose for a while, or you have a negative reaction, a side effect, and then you back off one notch and continue at that amount. That's the way to figure out doses. They vary for each person, but the bottom line is that they're almost always higher than the doses that we're led to believe should work, but don't.
Yeah. So what part of this probably comes from the dosage forms of tinctures and capsules, predominantly what we have in modern society. And all tinctures can, first of all, vary in potency. So if you're got a 1-to-1 fluid extract versus a 1-to-5 tincture, you're already dealing with a big difference in potency of how much you're going to need to take to get the effect. And in capsules, people think, a typical dose of capsules to start with in a lot of the formulas I've used in capsules has been 2-3 times a day. But I often tell people you often can go 3 or 4 times that high,
right,
to get a really good effect. And that's a lot of capsules to be swallowing when you're trying to take something in capsule form. So this can be problematic. One of the things that you say, and I'm glad to hear you say this, about increasing the dose until you get the effect. I've done this with stuff that I know works for kind of acute illness or for helping with, say, pain. A formula for this natural formula for pain. I've taken one that has boswellia, white willow, a mangosteen, pericarp extract, and what's the other one? Turmeric, right? Turmeric extract. And I'll take 4 capsules and then an hour later take another 4 capsules, and an hour later take another 4 capsules till I hit a dose where it puts the pain under control, and then I'll start spreading it out to every 2 or 3 hours, which is like way more than what the bottle says, way more. but I find it to be very effective when I do it that way. And also when I was working with my kids with some things like a little catnip and fennel, you're trying to help a kid with upset stomach. You give them a little bit, 15 minutes later, you give them a little bit more, 15 minutes later, you give them a little bit more until you get the effect you want. Or like you say, unless something doesn't seem to work, and then I switch and try something else. Have you had the experience of people like they're taking something and you ask them, how long have you taken this? They, oh, like 6 months. And you say, well, have you noticed any difference? And they say, not really. Have you had
Yeah, almost everybody that I talk to. Yeah, it just seems nonsensical, but most people take dietary supplements, including herbs, because they think it's a good idea. Their Aunt Susie recommended it. They saw some webinar. They read a blog, something. They said, zinc is good. I'll take that. I don't know what I'm taking it for. A great herbal example is ashwagandha that has become a 50-year or 5,000-year overnight sensation. I've been using it for 50 years, and it's just a generic workhorse herb in Ayurveda, but it was named the herb of the year this last year, and it's very trendy right at the moment here that we're talking. And when I ask people what they're taking it for, they have no idea. They just say, well, it's a good herb, so I take it, but they're taking 1 capsule a day, which isn't enough to do anything. You were just suggesting 3 or 4 times the suggested dose. Most herbal medicine suggests taking 1 capsule a day on the label. And again, that's for liability from the manufacturer, not the dose that actually they think will work, and they in fact know that dose isn't going to work. So it's not 3 or 4 more capsules; it's 3 or 4 more times the total daily dose. So exactly what you're saying is the way that we need to do it. People just have no idea. They, if you've seen, like, let's say, a lisinopril pill for blood pressure, that's about the size of a lentil, and that's a 1 a day drug, and people are used to that now. And then we say, well, take 20 capsules, 25, 30 capsules, and it's just overwhelming. They just can't make sense out of why that should happen. If that was Valium, I'd be dead. So it takes some education to get people to do that. We don't want to have people take more than they need, but we do want them to take enough to do the job without side effects. So incremental dose increase, divided doses, exactly as you were suggesting. You don't take all 30 capsules on an empty stomach before breakfast.
right?
So you have to know some really basic instructions about how to use these things. Multi-gram doses, 15, 20-gram doses, 30-gram doses in Ayurveda and Chinese medicine are the norm, not the exception. And those are doses that have been worked out over 3,000 years. People figured out what works, and then they teach each generation. In our case, we're just the first generation now of people who figured all this out, and we're having difficulty getting it out into the mainstream. And again, we're bucking the commercial interests who want you to continue to do exactly what you just said, Stephen. Take 1 capsule a day for 6 months, not notice any difference, but in the meantime, they've made their money.
Well, when you talk about 30 grams, just to put that in perspective, capsule is typically 400 to 500 or a little more milligrams. So it takes 2 capsules to make 1 gram. So
Right.
essentially, being generous with the amount of the herb in the capsule, you would be talking about taking 60 capsules.
Yeah, right.
Which,
So, well, that's right. That just seems ridiculous to people, and it's expensive and a lot of things to swallow. So when you get up to those kinds of doses, you have to do something else. Those are medium potency herbs that you take at kind of higher doses to get their effect. So either you have to choose herbs that are more potent so that you can take a fewer amount of capsules, or you have to switch to tea. And that is to say that not every single herb will work as tea, that's for sure. But those that can, you can cook up 30 grams of herb in a pint of water. Let's say that would be the standard thing. Squeeze it out very completely. You ended up with a cup and a half of herbal mud, which is completely swallowable. A cup and a half, that's just a few glugs to get it down, but it's going to have a taste. And so we have to get around that issue also. It's quite challenging for people that are used to taking medicine, drugs at these tiny doses to figure that out. But it's the thing that they have to do for it to work.
right. And I would say that you kind of should, when you're taking an herb, you should kind of have an idea of what it's supposed to do. And I tell people, if you take it and you notice that you're getting some improvement, but not quite where you want. Increase the dose until you get where you want to go, but do it based on the fact that you notice a change, a positive change in your body. Don't
Yes.
take something just because you read it's good for you.
Right.
You know, it's ridiculous to be spending your money on a bunch of stuff and you're not noticing that it's doing anything for your health.
Yeah.
You should really pay attention to how your body responds to things. And if it
Without
doesn't
a doubt.
respond favorably to it, try something different.
Yeah, the one exception to that would be maintenance herbs like adaptogens or nutritive tonics,
Yes.
things that you just take a gram or two a day for the rest of your life. But otherwise, absolutely, you should know what it's supposed to do and you should be able to feel it. You're absolutely right. So you work your way up until you begin to feel that thing, whatever it is, whether it's pain or digestion or skin issues or whatever, something happens. And then you gradually bump up the dose as it's working better and better. And you get to the top of the bell curve where taking more doesn't produce anything better. Now, again, there are some different time frames. Some chronic conditions take longer to be able to treat. Herbs are dynamic, dramatic, and effective. They really work. And the reason that people don't have the experience that we'd like them to have with it when that happens is because they're using the wrong herb, the wrong preparation, the wrong dose. And all that goes back to herbal education. And the people that know about all these things are professionally trained herbalists that have long clinical experience and credentials like Stephen and me. Otherwise, people are just completely bamboozled. So we lost all that cultural knowledge. Unless you're indigenous, everybody's family came from somewhere else, and they all had herbal traditions wherever they were. But all that got lost when they immigrated, and now nobody knows any of that. I'm only third generation American from Europe, and neither my parents or grandparents knew any of this. It was lost within one generation. So we have to figure that out. You have to find somebody that knows that or read their books, people who are knowledgeable.
And I think this is also partly why the industry, I've noticed, is tending towards a more pharmaceutical trend in what they're doing, because a lot of companies now, instead of using the whole herb, they're using a standardized extract of some constituent of the plant to get a more drug-like effect out of it, because then you take less and you get thing. But I'm not sure that that's better for our health. One of the reasons why I got into herbalism was because I believe that there's a synergy of all the ingredients in the whole plant that has a healing effect on the body and not just a symptom relieving effect. Not in all cases, because there are obviously herbs that are just symptom relieving, but I think there's a more healing quality to herbs when they're the whole plant rather than some isolated chemical constituents like the cavalactones from kava kava, for example, or curcumin from turmeric, or berberine from barberry or golden seal.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And historically, people used whole herbs in some very basic preparations like powder or tea, and they work for thousands of years, and people are able to maintain their health quite well. So it's a tricky situation because our clientele has grown up using drugs, and you can see why drugs were invented. If we go back to late 1800s, people were used to choking down a bunch of powder. They didn't have capsules yet then, but powder of one kind or another, drinking strong teas, and they pretty much felt like if it didn't taste bad, it wasn't effective. Then gradually drugs became introduced, and they were so easy. Instead of taking a big bowl of willow bark mud for your headache, you got to take 2 aspirin, and it was quick and easy, but it had side effects and other issues. So for those of us that are in the field now, we're confronted with this issue where it's hard to get people to do the things that you and I would like them to do, take whole herbs in sufficient dose. And so we do have some of these things available, like berberine or cavalactones or whatever it may be. So that's just the challenge is, do we resist this trend or do we go with it or try to straddle the difference somehow?
I don't know. But it is one of the reasons why I wanted to have these conversations, is because I think that you get in the culture, you get all of this kind of widespread information that I think is actually lacking in depth. Like we've become a meme culture where everybody gets this little tidbit, like Don Quai is for women, or black cohosh is for hot flashes, or saw palmetto is for the prostate. and that's as deep as it goes.
Right.
And that's not herbalism, and it never was herbalism in the past, and it's still not good herbalism today.
Yeah, absolutely right.
So yeah, so everybody, when you're using the commercial products, number one, know what it is you're trying to take something for. You know, I mean, like, are you trying to lower your blood pressure, or trying to reduce your anxiety, or trying to, you know, reduce pain and inflammation? Know what you're trying to achieve, and then when you're taking something, you know, take it, and don't be afraid to considerably exceed the dose on the manufacturer's recommended bottle, because most of the time, as KP said, it's way too low. And if it doesn't give you the effect you're looking for, try something else, or consult with some, you know, professional to get some help of someone who might actually be able to help you figure out what actually works. Thank you, KP, for discussing this topic. I think it's a very important thing that people need to become aware of.
Always a pleasure, Stephen.
Yeah. And if you'd like to learn more, links to our websites are in the information below. KP has an excellent school where you can learn a lot about herbs, and I have my member program on my website where you can join and also get a lot of good information about herbs and natural healing. So thanks again. Hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to catch future episodes of Healthy Conversations. Help us educate others by sharing this video, and please feel free to share your own thoughts, comments, and questions below. To learn more, check out the links below.